Didn't see you there. Welcome to the next installment in Fireside Philosophy. I'm your host, Michael Joseph Collins. Today's lecture is going to be focusing on the history of philosophy and also on how it relates to the ultimate question, how did we get where we are today? Over the course of today's lecture, we will be going over 5 basic points that help us further understand the history of philosophy. For the first point, you may be asking yourself, what is philosophy? For the second point, what are the basic fields of philosophy? The third point, why is it important that we understand new ideas and how they have evolved historically? The fourth point, I will discuss the history of philosophy in the pre-modern, modern, and postmodern eras. And finally, in the fifth point, I will explain the critical relationship between metaphysics and epistemology. Birds. And now for the first question. What is philosophy? Philosophy can be described as the love of wisdom. Philosophy was created by the ancient Greeks in the earliest of times around the Mediterranean area. The ancient Greeks used philosophy as a way of thinking and a way to answer questions logically. Philosophy is an action that can be strengthened through the use of reason. The ancient Greeks used philosophy to think about the big picture in life. According to Professor Massimo Pigliucci, philosophy can sharpen our reasoning. We next move on to the basic fields of philosophy. What are the basic fields of philosophy? Which does each study? The first field is metaphysics. Metaphysics is the study of the nature of the worlds and the existence of gods. What are the right ways to think and build arguments? That is logic. The third basic field is epistemology. Epistemology is how we know what we think we know. Ethics is how we tell right from wrong. The best form of government and how we achieve it is what we know as politics, or political philosophy. And what is beauty defines the study of aesthetics. Now that we've gone through all of the basic information regarding philosophy, we can dive deeper into the philosophical pool of evolution and ideas. We now ask ourselves, why is it important that we understand how ideas have evolved historically? Knowing this not only furthers our understanding of the ideas themselves, but it also helps to define the way that humans as a species think and answer questions. This is critical foundation for philosophers and humans trying to understand them. And now, a brief discussion on the pre-modern, modern, and postmodern philosophical periods. During the pre-modern era, which lasted from around 400 AD to 1400 AD. The train of thought was based on faith and mysticism. People in this period were idealists and believed in the dependence on God and the church. The feudal system was a common practice in this period. In the 1400s, there was a tectonic shift in the way of thinking that people had. The emphasis became more on realism rather than faith. People believed that they had a tabula rasa, or clean slate, and they had a capacity for good and evil. They relied on reason and the senses to solve critical questions. Once again, another critical shift in the way of thinking came in the 1900s. The focus once again became more on faith and idealism, and people became more aware of the earlier traditions before them. There was a more radicalized view of thinking, and people were skeptical of gods and higher beings. They had a strong connection to the French intellectuals, and capitalism was very popular during this era. And now we move on to the fifth and final important question. Describe the critical relationship between metaphysics and epistemology. Metaphysics is the study of the existence of God and things that are not in our universe. Epistemology is how we know what we know. The relationship between these two things is critical, and the fields work hand in hand. For example, someone cannot make a test to see whether God exists or whether the creative process is happening. Thus, metaphysics must provide other evidence that what they experience is reality. They must use epistemology to explain why their concepts can be viewed as absolute, producing rationalizations for each metaphysical belief. And now, it appears my glass is empty, but your minds are filled to the brim with philosophical knowledge. In order to really find meaning in what we have heard today, we must take a step back and realize how it applies to our daily lives in theology class. We can use the skills we learned today, reason and logic, to gain wisdom and answer essential questions, as well as to gain a closer relationship with God. But for now, I bid you a pleasant adieu, and make sure to tune in next week for a compelling, in-depth analysis of the most recent episode of Gossip Girl. Stay classy, planet Earth.